you have a guy in your life who has done something that clearly does not live up to your standards? For example, maybe you guys were in the talking stage and he took way too long to respond to one of your text messages. Or he said he was gonna do something and then didn't live up to it, or even left you hanging. If this is you, there are 3 things that you can do right now that can actually correct the behavior and make it a lot less likely that he'll ever do these things to you again. The talking stage is ultimately when someone tests you to understand what your boundaries are and how you expect to be treated. So don't feel bad if you have to use any of these 3 things. It is very, very normal.
I don't think any of that's true.
If you need yet another reason in the massive laundry list of reasons why men have given up on dating, you need not look any further than the modern dating coach. A woman who mailed in an application with a few proofs of purchase from an overpriced box of cereal and a money order for $250 US and now fancies herself an expert when it comes to human pair bonding. And what exactly does she do with this investment? Well, not much, just haphazardly give out advice that needlessly complicates basic human communication. Seriously, lady, you haven't even given out your destructive advice and you're already making it sound like 2 people getting to know each other is somehow just grounds to see how far they can push the other. How could you possibly think that what you're doing is helping? You know what? Oh my God, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm sorry, I forgot. You're a modern woman. Basic thinking is beyond your grasp. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I keep forgetting.
The first thing you're gonna do is called the playful push. The playful push is when you address what they did wrong, but the key is that you do it in a playful and encouraging way. So say, for example, someone doesn't text you back for a few days and then rolls in a few days later like nothing happened. The playful push would make it clear that you are not okay with their response time, but do it in a playful and sassy way. Something like, oh, so bold of you to roll in like that after a few days of a radio silence. I would probably put like a skull beside it, implying like you were gonna be dead to me. At this point, they'll probably apologize and let you know that they'll never do it again. This is because you were real with them, but didn't seem uncaring, angry, or bite off their head.
Oh, really?
I don't see this working for a number of reasons. First off, this doesn't sound like a flirty or sassy reply. It just comes off as mean and passive aggressive. Now, in the event that the man in question was legitimately incommunicado for a few days, which does happen, seeing a text like this is just gonna confuse him and make him realize that you're not worth more effort because you're not willing to listen to reason. Secondly, if this is just a guy who's using you for a little action in the less than pants variety, then he's either going to ghost you or stand up to you, but he's not gonna apologize. And considering that you're competing for the kind of man who can afford to go radio silent for a few days, you won't have the guts to be this petty because you really want to sink your claws and latch into him as much as you possibly can.
If you do the playful push and they still test your boundaries, you're gonna move on to something called the calm call out. This is when you state firmly but lovingly your boundary again. And you're gonna reference the first time that you brought it to their attention. Hey, remember that time I told you that I don't like being left hanging? I don't like being left hanging. You are either gonna text this or say it as earnestly as humanly possible.
You're not just wrong, you're stupid. Now wait just a minute. And you're ugly, just like your mum.
That won't work either. Self-respecting men have no need to test boundaries. They'll respect your time if you respect theirs. It's really not more complicated than that. But we're not talking about these kinds of men because you believe that they are beneath you. Do you honestly think that Chad is going to respond to this calm call out with an apology and a vow to do better communication? Sister, if you try this, he's just gonna ghost you and move on to the next chick. Deep down, you already know this, which is why you're not gonna do anything, because you're gonna try to desperately fool yourself into thinking that you have a chance with him. But we all know the truth, and the truth is we have met snowballs with better chances in the fires of hell than you do with Chad.
Third thing, guys, is the ultimatum. Now, I could do an entire video on how to do an ultimatum. Let me know here in the comments if you want something like that. There is nothing that a guy or a girl fears more than losing you. If you do this thing again, I will need to say my goodbyes, and I don't want to. This is the most effective way of communicating your boundaries, but should only ever be a last resort.
What?
So if you really want to make any form of relationship implode, then by all means, go with an ultimatum. It's one of the most toxic things that you can do, and no man will have the time or patience for that. Ultimatums are not a threat to most men. They are an annoyance. It's disrespectful, rude, and a massive waste of time. If you give this guy an ultimatum of any sort, he's just gonna likely walk out the door before you even have a chance to break things off yourself. To be frank, at that point, you're nothing more than a bench-warming backup bed warmer. And Chad has plenty of those on standby already. So maybe next time, just communicate your problems and pick better men. But as we already know, you're a modern woman, and that is all but impossible.
Good luck.
I'm so tired of teaching men things at my own expense. I don't want to teach someone how to communicate. I don't want to teach someone how to be thoughtful. I don't want to teach someone any of that. I don't want to be someone's mom, and I don't want to be someone's tutor. I'm just so tired of getting my feelings hurt because a man was thoughtless and careless. But at the same time, with patriarchy in mind, I feel like some of that is actually unavoidable. But I don't know where the line is, and I don't know what's actually acceptable, and I don't know how much I should actually teach, and it just becomes this confusing thing.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Oh, you patriarchy, is there nothing you can't do? Next to periods, the patriarchy is the ultimate excuse for the modern woman. Do you find yourself falling for men who are just using you for bedroom action? Blame the patriarchy. Can't accept the fact that your standards are too high? Well, that's the patriarchy's fault as well. Is your refrigerator not chilling your boxed wine to the appropriate temperature? Well, damn you, patriarchy. Do you find yourself being unable to actually define the patriarchy? Well, the good news is that your inability to actually define the patriarchy is in fact the fault of the patriarchy. Let's be serious for a second, woman. It's not the patriarchy's fault that you have terrible taste in men. You keep choosing men who only want you for one thing, and it's not your personality. Trust me, there's not one to be had there. And they'll pretend to care about you until you become a pain, and then they'll move on. And that is not the fault of the patriarchy. That is your inability to be a halfway decent judge of character.
I'm currently in a situation where a man was really thoughtless, really careless, and did some things that were quite hurtful to me. Usually I'm like a first sign of disrespect, leave them girly. But for some reason, I've had a lot of empathy and space for this person that I'm currently dealing with. And I'm having a hard time putting my finger on why exactly I'm doing that.
Idiots! It's simple!
Well, there's a few reasons why. For starters, you think this guy is insanely attractive, and because you think this guy is incredibly hot, you're willing to put up with unresponded texts, canceled dates, and him denying you post-coital cuddle sessions. Second reason, the dude is loaded. But considering your less than average looks, I find this doubtful. And that's because dudes with money can usually get better pancakes than your griddle could ever possibly serve up. And third, you think he's a broken bad boy who just needs a little fixing. In any case, it all ends the same way regardless. It ends with you complaining about how they won't listen to you, even though they're under no obligation to do so. You'll threaten to leave, and your obvious bluff will be called every time because you want them a hell of a lot more than they will ever want you. And at the end of the day, you just can't help yourself but set yourself up for this kind of failure. Hey, if the shit fits, wear it, am I right?
But it's really frustrating, and like at one end I want to just drop him entirely and just like give up and stop and just have him deal with the consequences of losing me. But then the other half of me that is hanging on is like, well, maybe he'll actually learn from this, and then maybe things will be good, and then I don't know, maybe we'll be friends. But I'm just stuck because I don't want to be someone's freaking mom. I don't know, I'm conflicted. I just hate dealing with this kind of stuff, and I wish that we lived in a society where this wasn't so freaking common.
Hey.
Woman, when you use phrases like he'll learn from this, it just goes to show that you are a mean, condescending individual. You believe that men are stupid, that they are these ill-mannered mutts that are incapable of doing even the most basic things unless you are there to train them. Well, guess what, sister? We're actually capable of taking care of ourselves. We're pretty good at it. We've been doing it for thousands of years. We don't need you to be our mom. We need you to provide us some peace. And if you're not capable of doing that, it's because you are so high off the smell of your own crotch farts that you think you're better than everybody else. Well, guess what? You're not. And all of the men you've chosen know this. These dudes ultimately ghost you because you're not worth the effort. They move on with their lives and you post TikTok cringe. Then gents like us find your TikTok cringe, make fun of you for it, and then you'll find another guy on a dating app and the cycle repeats itself forever and ever.
Amen.
Hey, hey. Woman, when you use phrases like he'll learn from this, it just goes to show that you are a mean, condescending individual. You believe that men are stupid, that they are these ill-mannered mutts that are incapable of doing even the most basic things unless you are there to train them. Well, guess what, sister? We're actually capable of taking care of ourselves.
Amen.
I agree with this, and all my friends say it, that guys just don't approach anymore. Like in the past, maybe a guy would approach and come up to them, ask for the number. Once in a while it happens for me, but of course, like not as much as previously. And obviously, a guy can literally open up his Instagram app, search up girls in the city that he's in, go like a bunch of their photos on each of their pages. So you go on like 20 really pretty girls' pages, and then eventually one might follow back or like some photos back. And that is a hell of a lot easier for a guy and way less amount of rejection than to go up to a girl on the street.
Nope. That would be a waste of time.
Well, have you considered that dudes aren't approaching you as much because they take one look at you and realize there's fewer and fewer reasons to do so? Because that was the first thing I considered when I saw you. And your Instagram story strategy only works for one kind of man, and it's not the men who are giving up approaching. I'm gonna part with you some wisdom, Captain Filters. The type of man you want approaching you has no need for social media. It's just another tool in the proverbial box, so to speak. The average man doesn't approach anymore because it's just not worth it. You're not worth the price of a drink because you don't even sound all that interesting to talk to. And you don't look like you have anything interesting to say either. And you're just as stimulating as a dead worm on a hot summer sidewalk, and I'm fairly certain that dead worm has significantly more uses.
But if a guy is coming up to you on the street, and even if you're not interested in him, thank him and be kind, because it does take a lot of nerve to go up to someone and do that. And I do believe that real men still approach.
You can't lie there and honestly think that any woman is going to take that advice seriously, do you? Modern women have been more or less given permission to just rip into any man they don't deem worthy of being in their presence, and they do it without mercy. And I don't care what you say, and I don't care how rare you think it may be, but a false accusation from the wrong woman has dire consequences against that poor dude for the rest of his life, and at best will end with a light slap on the wrist for the woman. With that particular balance skewed, there is virtually no benefit to even risk talking to you. So here's a novel idea. If you're interested in a guy, get off your surgically altered and entitled butt and go up to the dude and talk to him. But we all know that's never gonna happen. If it did, that would cause you to exert some effort. And if you did that, then the patriarchy wins. And God knows we can't have that, now can we?
It's science.
Normalize fucking hating your husband. Like, for real. It's okay to go through about a minute, half a day, couple hours, a full day, even a week of just like, I can't fucking stand you right now.
Like, people talking, they say, huh? What are you talking about?
But deep down or in the back of your head, it might be all the way down in your toes at this point, you know I love you so much, and I know we're in this together, we're just in the thick of it.
And you get a reaction from people who say, huh? What are you talking about?
Here's something that's incredibly depressing about this whole tirade that this chick just said. If you replace the word husband with any other word involving the family unit, it turns what's supposed to encourage wives into embarking on a week-long crusade of spousal mistreatment into something sick, twisted, and wrong. Here's the obvious example. Normalize effing hating your wife. Well, that sounds like it'll get you in front of a judge right quick. Normalize effing hating your son. Well, hello, Child Protective Services. Nice to know ya. Normalize effing hating your dog. The list goes on, but for some reason, when you use a term like boyfriend or husband, it's totally fine despite the fact that it sounds manipulative, petty, and just plain mean. But that's because wives are constantly victims because of absurd reasons that virtually don't exist. Victimhood has been weaponized to justify this massive amount of disrespect towards a man who's doing the best he can to provide for his family, but it's just never enough for these broads. But even in the face of this kind of evil, I don't think it's right to normalize hating anything, even these wretched individuals. But I do think it's incredibly right to normalize endless ridicule of these toxic broads, because these chicks go way out of their way to earn such recognition, and come on, they make the job just way too easy for us. And that is gonna do it for today's video, gentlemen and gents. And as always, if you find that my particular brand of humor is bringing you to the brink of laughter, then why don't you scroll on down and click that like and subscribe button and ring the notification bell, leave a comment or two, and let's give the good old-fashioned middle finger to the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for checking out this new video, and until next time, peace out, homies.